Hello students, welcome to a new ICT video lesson on computer operations and fundamentals. Today we're going to learn how the speed of the CPU is determined and what units are used to measure CPU speed. This video lesson will cover how the CPU processes data, how the speed of the CPU is determined, units for measuring CPU speed, followed by a quick test and a recap. First, let us see how the CPU processes data. The CPU functions by manipulating one piece of data at a time. In other words, the CPU can process only one instruction at a time. The CPU follows the fetch, decode, and execute cycle. It fetches data and instruction, decodes the instruction, and then executes it. This work is done repeatedly by the CPU the whole time the computer is switched on. Each fetch, decode, execute cycle is done within a time frame as per the speed of the CPU. There is an internal clock inside the computer that manages the time taken by the CPU to process data and instructions. With every tick of the clock, the CPU executes one instruction. Therefore, one tick is equivalent to one clock cycle. The speed of the CPU is measured by the number of ticks or clock cycles per second. CPU speed is also called clock rate or clock speed. A higher number of cycles per second means a faster CPU. One clock cycle per second is called 1 Hz. The short form for Hertz is the capital letter H and small letter Z. Higher units for CPU speed are kilohertz, megahertz, and gigahertz. 1 kilohertz is equal to 1000 cycles per second. 1 megahertz is equal to 1 million cycles per second. And 1 gigahertz is equal to 1 billion cycles per second. Nowadays, the speed of the CPU exceeds 1 gigahertz. Therefore, the CPU can process at least 1 billion instructions per second, which is very fast. The modern desktop computer runs at a speed of about 3 billion cycles per second. A CPU running at this clock speed can process a huge amount of data in a very short time. Therefore, the computer can handle several programs at the same time. This is why you can listen to music on the computer while you're surfing the internet and doing some work. Now, to evaluate what you have learned today, let us do a quick test. Number 1. The CPU can process only one instruction at a time. True or false? The answer is true. The CPU can process only one instruction at a time. Number 2. CPU speed is measured in bytes. True or false? The answer is false. CPU speed is measured in hertz. Number 3. In modern desktop computers, CPU speed is measured in megahertz. True or false? The answer is false. The modern desktop computer runs extremely quickly. The CPU speed is measured in gigahertz. Number 4. 1 megahertz is equal to Option A, 1000 Hz, Option B, 1 million Hz, or Option C, 100 Hz. The answer is B. 1 megahertz is equal to 1 million Hz. Number 5. 3 gigahertz is equal to Option A, 3 billion Hz, Option B, 3000 Hz, or Option C, 1 million Hz. The answer is A. 3 gigahertz is equal to 3 billion Hz. Dear students, this is the end of our quick test for today. I am sure that you found all the correct answers. It is now time for a recap of today's lesson. The CPU continuously repeats the fetch, decode, execute cycle. Each time the internal clock ticks, one instruction is carried out by the CPU. A clock tick, also called a clock cycle, is the smallest unit of time in which processing happens. The speed of the CPU is determined by the number of clock cycles per second. The speed of the CPU is also called clock rate or clock speed. A higher clock rate means a faster CPU. In modern computers, CPU speeds are measured in gigahertz. The units for measuring CPU speed are Hertz, kilohertz, megahertz, and gigahertz. Dear students, we have reached the end of our lesson for today. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye and see you again very soon.